Yes, I have been there.
Who you coughing at? Who you coughing at?
Surviving Joseline, a feminine analyst on Joseline Hernandez. What does it mean to survive? For Joseline Hernandez, survival is not just a story of rising from nothing. It is also the complicated tale of perpetuating the very same cycles that once entrapped her. Her trajectory from childhood poverty and stripping to reality TV fame, and now basically a self-proclaimed madam on Joseline's Cabaret, embodies both the resilience and the trajectory of a woman hardened by abuse. Joseline's life is more than celebrity drama. It is a case study in survival, exploitation, and the dangers of leaving the feminine wound unhealed. Hi, I'm Queenie Urbane. If you're new here, I create content on femininity and make deep dives on how femininity shows up in our culture. If you like this type of content, be sure to thumbs up this video and subscribe to the channel for more. Without further ado, I want you to grab your tea, grab your coffee, and grab your water, because we're about to get into it.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I pull in a can.
First, we're going to get into Joseline's upbringing and childhood. From Puerto Rico to the strip club. Joseline's story begins in Ponce, Puerto Rico, where she grew up in extreme poverty. Her father died of a heroin overdose when she was still a child, leaving her mother to raise 5 children alone. In this environment of scarcity, Joseline turned to stripping at only 16 years old. This decision, often sensationalized in her narrative, was not rooted in glamour but in survival economics. Research supports this pattern. According to the Urbane Institute, nearly 70% of strippers and sex workers report entering the industry because of economic desperation or unstable households. Joseline's circumstances, poverty, grief, and lack of social support aligned with this structural vulnerability. From the very beginning, survival was not optional for Joseline. It was compulsory. Now we're going to be entering into her rise to fame. Love and hip hop. Joseline's survival instincts carried her into the world of reality TV. On Love and Hip Hop, she became a central figure through her explosive relationship with music producer Stevie J. Their dynamic was infamous, a love triangle with Mimi Frost, where there was tons of emotional manipulation and constant public humiliation. I want to bring that up because we're going to cycle back to that later. Behind all the entertainment value, because we know that matters, of course, Natalie got the formula down and so does Joseline. However, Joseline was enduring a cycle of abuse that was psychological, verbal, and at times physical. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence reports that 1 in 3 women in the United States experience domestic abuse from their intimate partner, and many abusers exploit financial dependence as a means of control. This is precisely what played out on screen. Stevie J tied Joseline's career aspirations to his affection and approval, deepening her vulnerability.
You telling me f me? That's what you telling me? For what I did for you? I gave you another life.
Okay, if you gave me my life, if you're gonna take it back every chance you get, I don't need you to give me no life.
Yet Joseline was not merely a passive victim. She often lashed out violently towards castmates and even towards Stevie himself. Her aggression was framed as crazy or toxic, but a deeper lens reveals it is survival armor, the physical eruption of unhealed wounds. Reality television profited from this volatility, packaging her trauma as entertainment while reinforcing the stereotype of the angry Latina woman. I mean, let's think about it. Besides K. Michelle, Joseline is the biggest artist to come out of, the biggest star, to come out of Love and Hip Hop. Why is that? Because her story was the most entertaining from a viewer's standpoint with the love triangle that was going on. That was real trauma for these ladies. She went through real situations with Stevie J, and she endured it publicly for all of us to watch. In truth, Joseline's so-called bad behavior was the symptom of a woman navigating both personal abuse and systematic exploitation before America's eyes. But seasons do come and seasons do change. So now we're entering the Ballistic Era. The masculine meets the wounded feminine. Later, Joseline entered into a relationship with music producer Ballistic Beats, who she often credits with bringing stability into her life. Ballistic's presence represents, in Joseline's own framing, the masculine energy that grounded her wounded feminine. To an extent, this offered her reprieve from the chaos of her earlier years. Finally, she found a good man who knows how to nurture her feminine, make her feel soft, but also make her feel important, because Joseline also has the ego on her. And I think a huge part of that, to some way, is very much the masculine boss go-getter aspect to who she is. So he's kind of docile enough where he respects the fact that she's an entity within herself, but also he doesn't let her walk all over her.
What's wrong with you feeding somebody fruit and then you telling the young boy, oh, don't tell nobody about what we did today, man, all this, man.
You kidding me?
Man, you disrespect me. I told you, treat me like a king. What? You don't disrespect me, man.
He stands up whenever she thinks she's going to try it with him. And she respects that a lot compared to other men that she's dealt with, because he makes her feel so safe. However, to add to that, this also underscores a troubling pattern. Joseline has repeatedly had to turn to male figures, whether it's Stevie J, reality producers, and now Ballistic, to basically regulate her life and provide a sense of control. And I want to tie this into masculinity and femininity, because femininity can flourish when masculinity is present. But here's the thing about it. Because Joseline hasn't had good examples of what masculine presence looks like, she had to go through all that trauma. She had to have a child and really think about basically the actions she's putting out there in the world. What is she doing? The things that she has going on. And basically have a healthy masculine finally allow her feminine to be nurtured to the point where it's not so wounded. This raises a critical question. Has Joseline ever truly been given space to heal outside of male-defined power structures? Has she? Her dependency on external masculine stability reveals not only her vulnerability, but also the incomplete nature of her healing. Now we're going to get into Joseline's Cabaret. From victim to madam. Perhaps the most striking chapter in Joseline's story is her transformation from victim to madam on her reality series, Joseline's Cabaret. She doesn't really call herself a madam, but she's basically a madam, so I'm gonna call her that. And that's because on the show, Joseline recruits women, many of them dancers, sex workers, or women struggling with poverty, who come seeking opportunity.
I'm thinking about keeping 6 to 7 girls on tour.
Got it.
I'm gonna be sending a lady home every night for like 6 days straight.
Instead, what they often receive is verbal abuse, humiliation, and in most cases, physical violence, all in the name of entertainment and a shot at toxic fame.
Who you coughing at? Who you coughing at? I wasn't coughing. I know you weren't coughing at me.
Every time your mother throw the ball, and then you get your friend involved in it, and she fights all your battles, you a Tell me when you met that.
This dynamic illustrates Leonard Walker's Cycle of Abuse Theory, 1979, which argues that victims of abuse often unconsciously replicate the same abusive behaviors they were once subjected to, especially once they gained power. Now, if you watch the show of Joseline's Cabaret, you know that Joseline treats these women crazy. Crazy. She even said in an episode once that she treats these women better than their own mama treats them.
Hold on.
That was messed up over there.
I do more for you guys than your mothers ever did for you guys. I don't understand your...
How much ego do you have to think like that? To think that you treat someone better than their own mama treated them. Even if one girl had a not so present mother, to say that to a whole group of women, it's either you know you're choosing women with very bad childhoods or you think that highly of yourself. And both is very telling. Joseline's treatment of her cabaret dancers mirrors the treatment that she was receiving by Stevie J when she was on Love and Hip Hop. Promises of opportunity laced with degradation and control. The cycle has not been broken. It has been televised on a new platform with less restrictions. Research confirms the dangers of these patterns. Studies show that 44% of survivors of domestic violence either perpetuate or re-enter abusive dynamics if they do not undergo healing interventions. Joseline's Cabaret is thus not just a spectacle, but a tragic manifestation of unhealed trauma playing out on screen with real women bearing the brunt. Now, if you know me, you know This isn't my first rodeo. I'm gonna add in a counter argument just in case the haters got something else to say, even though this is an opinion video. And here's that. So of course, some argue that Joseline is simply performing the role of a boss in an industry built on shock and spectacle. Duh, especially as someone who's on Zeus. It's nothing but shock and spectacle to bring up ratings, to bring up views, and to bring in more money and cash flow. They claim her harshness empowers the women by giving them exposure they might never have had otherwise. In this view, Joseline is not an abuser, but a gatekeeper offering a pathway to fame. Yet, empowerment that replicates abuse is not empowerment at all. It is exploitation.
If you my friend, you're gonna be my friend. It's a whole
I'm your boss. I'm your boss.
If fame only comes at the cost of your dignity, then we must ask, who truly benefits? The audience may be entertained and Joseline may profit, but the women on stage are left traumatized, with their pain commodified for ratings. The warning and the road to redemption. Here lies the warning. When women harden themselves against the world without healing, they risk becoming the very thing once despised. A hardened feminine may survive, but in the process, it can lose softness, its nurturing nature, and self-respect. Joseline is proof that pain, when unprocessed, mutates into power that harms others. But Joseline's story does not have to end there. There remains a possible road to redemption. First, she would need to publicly acknowledge her own abuse and how she is literally replicating how Stevie J treated her. I don't even think someone has said that to her face to make her realize that. We can do scene-by-scene clips of behavior of how Joseline was treated by Stevie J compared to how she treats her current Cabaret girls. Second, she could use her platform to uplift women rather than exploit them, creating safe spaces for those who share her background. I mean, she is amongst, or was once formerly a dancer. She was once a stripper herself, but I know she's met strippers who can cook, who are stellar moms, who are good nannies, good housekeepers, who have other skills that could be highlighted and can boom into other businesses that really show these women as leveling up their life. They don't look very leveled up for being with her for so many years. So how empowering is this? Finally, personal healing through therapy, accountability, and spiritual realignment could break the cycle she is currently perpetuating. Evidence suggests that this path is not only possible, but deeply effective. Trauma-informed care programs show that survivors who engage in structured healing are 60% less likely to replicate abusive cycles in relationships or workplaces. Redemption, then, is not just a moral choice, it is a measurable possibility. In conclusion, Joseline's story is both inspiring and cautionary. She is the rose that grew from concrete, but a rose with thorns sharp enough to wound others. Her journey forces us to consider how survival without healing can turn victims into perpetuators, and how cycles of violence can be broadcasted rather than broken. Ultimately, the lesson extends beyond Joseline. If we as women and as a culture do not tend to our wounds, the world will harden us into versions of our abusers. Surviving Joseline is not just about her survival. It is about whether we will choose healing over hardness, and whether we can finally decide to break the cycle rather than perform them. I think that she's starting to have this figured out in terms of her relationship with men and masculinity, and we're hoping that she gets there with women and femininity as well. So I leave you with this. How do we as women and as a culture begin to heal our wounds before they harden us? And what does breaking the cycle look like to you? Thank you guys all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Bye.
I like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party. Pink felt like I'm ready to bend. I'm a 10, so I